Seen It podcast, the only podcast called Never Seen It that's worth listening to. With us tonight, Mr. Arnie, the one-man party, is here. Arnold Callego, Mr. Daily Dares, a.k.a. Filipino Grigio, a.k.a. Alex Callego, the brothers Callego, Mr. Donnie Appleseed, a.k.a. Donnie Guzman, the cousins Callego / Guzman, Mr. Ghost Nerd 88, a.k.a. Justin Holden, and then there's me, Boots Too Big, a.k.a. Adrian De La Torre. And tonight, we are discussing the hit classic 2004 movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, directed by Michel Gondry, written by Charlie Kaufman.
Michel Gondry.
Michel Gondry and Charlie Kaufman.
Starring Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood, Tom Wilkinson. It's a who's who of early 2000s great actor. They're still great actors to this day. David Cross is in this as well. Joe Barish is heartbroken that his girlfriend underwent a procedure to erase him from her memory, and he decides to do the same. However, as he watches his memories of her fade away, he realizes that he still loves her, and it may be too late to correct his mistake. I believe this was Alex's movie, if I'm not mistaken. Alex, why did you choose this movie?
I chose it because one of our viewers, Brooke, a friend of the show, she wanted us to discuss it, but I've been wanting to discuss it for a long time. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, as I'm sure it is with, like, I know it's Donald's one of his all-time favorites. Pretty sure all of us really love this film. I just feel that it's one of those films that is just so worthy of discussion, and for me, it actually is relatable to relationships and breakups and everything like that. It's something that I've watched over the years and have related to it, but every single time I watched it, I got something different out of it. I didn't get a chance to watch it before recording the show, but I own it. I've watched it so many times that I used to actually even put it on play before I go to bed, just to kind of have it, so I could cry myself to sleep.
I rewatched it before recording tonight. I've seen it a handful of times probably, but I'm glad I rewatched it because I also caught some new things that I hadn't really remembered from my last rewatch, which was the Oh My Darling Clementine song plays several times in like pivotal moments throughout the story. And I didn't realize that in the beginning of the movie when they meet on the train for the first time and he says, oh, I don't know what that Clementine song is. And then later on in the movie when they're on the beach, and then he says, oh, my mom used to sing that song to me, which I believe they also depicted the mom singing that to them when they're both in the bathtub together. I was like, oh, so even that memory was erased because the movie loops back in on itself, right? So the beginning of the movie is actually the end of the movie. So I thought that was just a clever, just from a writing perspective, I thought that was so clever. I hadn't realized that before.
That's mind-blowing right now.
But it's interesting, right? And here's the thing, like, I don't know. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is, yeah, you can erase the uncomfortable memories from your mind, but like, those memories are what shape you as a person. So it's like, why would you want to do that? Even though you've been through uncomfortable moments and hard breakups and all that, that's part of what shapes you as a person. So I think that's an interesting like theme that they played with in this story. But one of my favorite movies overall. I think Jim Carrey, in an alternate universe, he would have been like a great dramatic actor of his same generation. He hit it big in the 90s with comedy and stuff, obviously, but like the man can act. And he's only done he's done like 3 dramatic roles, really. It was Truman Show, this, and there was that one movie, the Numbers movie.
Number 23.
That one, yeah, I like that movie. I feel like no one ever talks about that movie, but I really like that movie, and I liked him in it.
He did Man on the Moon.
That's right, Man on the Moon. That was like his method movie, right? Because
there's actually a really good documentary on that one too, where he like kind of talks about his the method acting and how they couldn't tell there was like moments where some of his co-actors saw him that also knew Andy Kaufman, and they're like, wait, what is this Andy Kaufman like being channeled through Jim Carrey?
I think Jim Carrey is always a method actor.
Yeah,
I think when he gets in his role, he really gets into, even like in recent films, like with the Sonic movies, as Dr. Robotnik. I'm going to say this, he's nothing like Dr. Robotnik, but he's amazing at the version that he portrays because he gets into it so well. Like everything, Ace Ventura to Dr. Robotnik, he's a method actor.
I feel like he's the only one that could play Dr. Robotnik at this point.
I had no idea that he soft retired. But, a lot of actors will say that, oh, I'm tired. And then they keep working. But it's like, don't even retire. Like, you can look at Michael Caine. He's in his 90s and he's still doing movies. Just keep going. Keep chugging.
Do what you want. Say you're retired and keep acting. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on the other side, Adrian.
I'm surprised Man on the Moon didn't do good in box office numbers. Like, it was a flop, and when you look at it from a numbers perspective,
I love that
it was a good movie. Me too. It was a good movie.
It's a great movie.
I've never seen it.
Never seen. Well, hey, it's the name of the show, Arnold. Arnold, let me ask you this: what aspect of this movie did you relate to the most? Would you say?
Oh, well, one part at the beginning where he was like, "Why is it every girl that I like he always like falls in love like really easily?"
Yeah.
That was like me, my adolescent
Same.
years.
Into my adult years, bro. What do you mean adolescent? For me. But I get what you mean.
Because when I became an adult, I just wanted to
Right.
fun.
Right. What's his name? Elijah Wood is I always default to talking about villains, but I guess because I find villains so interesting in storytelling. But like Elijah Wood is like a sort of villain character, and I think that part was so interesting for him in the sense that like it was kind of playing against type because he just got out of the Lord of the Rings movies where he's like the hero, and then he plays like this sort of sleazy dude who's trying to move in on Kate Winslet's character in this movie. So I thought that was just a nice little standout performance. I like David Cross, even though he's also a comedian and he's only got a few scenes. Like, it feels like whenever you pepper David Cross into something, it always like elevates it just a little bit.
Didn't Elijah Wood? Didn't he play a bad guy in Sin City?
Oh, was he a bad guy? I don't remember that. What his character was in that actually.
Yeah, he was that yellow guy that like got off on people being tortured and whatever. Yeah.
The yellow guy. I remember that.
Oh, no. Oops. Wrong. I'm wrong.
Wrong.
Completely wrong. No, not
Didn't
the
he
yellow
wear
guy.
have goggles?
He had like these glasses. No, it's the same concept. He wore these glasses and he was like a dark figure or whatever. But he at some point in Sin City, he's like eaten by dogs and he's just still staring all stoic and he's not reacting at all. It's crazy.
He plays a bad guy in Toxic Avenger, the newest Toxic Avenger movie. That was a good one. We got to discuss that. That was really good.
That'd be a good idea. And that was also made by a Kaufman, I think, right? Lloyd Kaufman or no? What's the guy?
Yeah,
that made this?
Lloyd. Well,
No,
he,
Lloyd Kaufman.
he was the creator of Toxic Avenger, but he didn't direct it or anything.
Oh, gotcha. I like that the majority of the people in this movie, though, are still working even to now. I feel like sometimes we'll discuss movies on this show from the 90s and early 2000s, and it's like maybe only a couple people are still... But like everybody's still like doing, like Mark Ruffalo's still doing stuff, Kirsten Dunst, just like Kate Winslet. I mean, everybody, even Elijah Wood, I guess too. He's doing more smaller projects. It seems like Tom Wilkinson is deceased, unfortunately. I think he passed away. When did he pass away? He passed away 3 years ago. So we lost the great Tom Wilkinson, but he's another one that's like love that actor.
The one that played the main doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Was he also in Clueless?
Was he in Clueless? Let's see. I have the letterbox. I don't see him in
Was he
Clueless.
the dad in Clueless?
No, that you're thinking of somebody else.
Yeah. I don't remember who the dad in Clueless was,
That was
but
just a random thought.
yeah.
Was it? I think the dad in Clueless was also in Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, wait, wouldn't that be Alan Arkin? I think you're thinking
Yeah,
about
I believe Adeline Arkin was.
Yeah.
Is that part 2 of this?
That's a good movie too. No.
Yeah, Clueless is part 2 of Eternal Sunshine.
No, Little Miss Sunshine.
No. Anyway, but what were we talking about? We're talking about the movie Eternal Sunshine, which I was reading about behind the scenes of it. A lot of things were improv, apparently, from what I was reading. When Mark Ruffalo's character and Kirsten Dunst's character are drunken in their underwear, singing and dancing in Jim Carrey's bedroom, like that was improvised. And then, like in the beginning of the movie, where Kate Winslet punches Jim Carrey on the arm, that was also improvised. And then that awesome scene with the elephants, which, like, the whole movie is like dream-like, right? Like it's like a lot of that dream logic aesthetic. That scene, when I first saw that in the trailer, I thought, "Oh, this is going to be a weird, interesting movie." That just happened to be going on wherever they were filming in New York, and the director was like, "Let's just go film it, and let's have Jim and Kate go down there." And
well, it kind of tracks with his cinema style. Michel Gondry has always been like that sort of way. Even when he was doing music videos, he directed a few of Bjork's music videos, and I think he also directed some Radiohead. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he did
I
Chemical
think-
Brothers also.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's right.
Yeah.
I was looking at his filmography. Speaking of his movies, the only other movie of his I've seen was Be Kind, Rewind, which is a great movie if you've never seen it.
You never seen The Science of Sleep?
I did not see this. I've heard of it. Is that good?
It's a good movie. Yeah, that's him as well.
Yeah. And Be Kind had Jack Black and
Most Def?
Mos Def.
Mos Def and Jack Black, and then I forgot Danny Glover was in it. I love that movie. That's another like fun.
Yeah, that's a really great film.
There's a certain like whimsy to that movie and this one, and especially with the dream logic, and like I don't know, like the aesthetics of it. You know, Michael.
Well,
Gondry
he has a playful nature to like a lot of his films and even the music videos. So I wouldn't.
He does that a lot. Like, you know, like when he was making this film, you know how usually you'll have the actors stand in like a certain spot, they'll mark the floors. He actually was against that. Like he didn't want it. He didn't want to mark the floors. He just kind of wanted them to stand where they think they should stand. And then it kind of provided like that shakiness, dreamlike intensity throughout the film while he was shooting. So he kind of wanted to give it like a dreamlike documentary style film or feel.
Yeah, I was reading this as well, that his way of controlling the camera operators while shooting, he would use a headset for himself and earpieces for the operators, and he would speak to them in French while the cameras were rolling and the actors were doing their parts, so Gondry could have a say on all angles no matter where the actors were. This resulted in a large degree of spontaneity since the actors could decide while in character whether to have an entire conversation sitting on a couch or get up and walk to a window. And Kate Winslet said she felt this freedom enhanced her performance, and that sometimes they would do different takes of the same scene completely differently based purely on gut feelings for what the characters might have done. And I think that really shows on screen. I feel like her and Jim Carrey had like a great chemistry, which I don't know. I don't know if you would ever expect Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet to have like that kind of a dynamic, but they had such a great chemistry in this film. So yeah, interesting. Yeah,
that flea market scene, like kind of like to go off what you were just saying, he would whisper something in like Carrey's ear and give him direction, and he says, just do what I tell you no matter what. And then he would whisper something completely different in Winslet's ear, and so they had no clue how the other person was going to react. And so like the emotions that you see on their face is like how they were actually like scared, or like they didn't know what was going on, because you know it doesn't match what they were being told to do, but like the other person was being given from different directions.
I mean, let's get Donnie. Like, do you? And I ask this a lot, but do you think this could be made today? Do you think this would be made the same way today as of back then, or do you think it'd be?
I think it's like no, I think it's a timeless movie. I think it's so unique, like the storytelling in it. Yeah, I think it could totally. I think it could totally be made today, and I think it would do really well if it was released recently, right? Like, but yeah, it's one of my favorite love stories, I guess you could say. It is a love story, right? Like, yeah,
absolutely. What do you think, Justin? Do you think this movie could be made today?
I agree with Donnie that it is kind of a timeless movie. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a unique idea. It's a unique idea. We need unique ideas, and I think if it wasn't made then, it could be made now. I wouldn't really be sure on who would be doing the roles for this movie, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a very unique movie. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like that same era of movies where they all kind of felt relatively the same, kind of like Requiem for a Dream. I noticed that some of the cuts in this movie are reminiscent of how some of the cuts are in Requiem, just full on like dreamscape. And it seems like the early 2000s was heavily focused on like that dreamscape in between, like, coming out of the 90s, moving into, the 2000s way of movie making. Everything just seems, even now, if I think about it, a lot of movies just seem like a little bit of a blur. Not in the sense that I don't remember them, but in the sense that they all just kind of felt like there was a moment in time that everything felt like it was dreamy. Like everybody was trying to make a dreamy kind of movie.
Yeah. Well, that's I'm glad you bring that up, because that makes me think about like, do you think that nowadays movies are more forgettable than like that back then? Like this movie is not forgettable, but like, do you think that like we're in an era of like, yeah, like we're producing higher quality content, but like at the same time, a lot of stuff out there is like forgettable, like across the board. I'm not picking on any one type of genre, but like, what do you think about that?
I feel that the way that this is filmed, this dreamlike sensibility, the era that Michel Gondry comes from, is the music video era, where people were really pushing the boundaries, really, and like they were funded by music companies, record companies, to do these cool movie-like stuff, to like kind of teach themselves how to do these sorts of things. So that by the time they got to making films, they'd already workshopped a lot of the stuff that they wanted to do. Whereas, like, I think with YouTube, and say for instance, like people like Curry Barker, they don't have the money and the backing to be able to just do like whatever, like go for it, and like do whatever you feel like they'll do it, they'll go for it, but it's not anywhere near the almost like no stakes at no cost at the stakes. It's just kind of like just like spit out stuff, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll just move on. Whereas Curry Barker, as a YouTuber, it's all his money is coming out of his own pocket. And so when he's funding stuff, there's limits to it. And so the idea of the dreamlike state, it comes at a better realization when you come to like a movie studio backing you, right? You get more money. Whereas the execution, I feel like years down the road, Curry Barker, his stuff is going to be way better than what his first film.
The reason why I bring it up is because we're seeing this huge consolidation of all these legacy media companies being bought out by the big tech companies, and I just feel like they're not taking as many risks with smaller art house movies as much anymore as they were back then, right? Like, I mean, this movie was distributed by Universal. I don't think Universal would distribute a movie like this today.
Well, they're starting to jump on the wagon right now, though. Like I think director Patrick, one of our previous guests, even mentioned it. I'm not sure if he mentioned it in our discussion of the Backrooms, but he did release a video kind of talking about it, where these directors are now all these studios are creating these small art house production studios. You know, what Warner Brothers has that new one that they just released, but they're using these sort of like shell companies, if you will, to help fund these YouTubers who are, you know, they have these potential to do great things, right? However, it's not. It's almost the opposite of what the music video juggernaut was.
There's a certain visual flair that music videos directors tend to bring to the table. Donnie, you had something?
You asked about like it being made in a different time frame, or like if it was made present. I think there would be more interference if it was made like today, because Gondry is very like artsy. Like he's totally against CGI. Like to create those dreamlike effects, like he's really putting a lot of thought into it, right? He creates his storylines and narratives broken, like they're fragmented timelines. It's never like linear, right? And a lot of you can see a lot of how he composes the movies. He really takes into consideration matching the beats, tempos, like the music that he uses with what you see on screen. So you can see like when things pop up on the screen for his movies, it's on beat with the tempo. Like even when he was I forgot what movie it was, but in this movie during the train ride, like when he's sitting there with Kate Winslet, and when you see figures pass by, like it's on beat with tempo with the things that you see. It's kind of crazy, but he's like visually aware of all that.
HLP's in the chat with us tonight. HLP says Eternal Sunshine inspired a lot of his fashion sense, so that's good. He also says Everything Everywhere All at Once is something similar of a standout film as Eternal Sunshine. That's true. That was also made on a very low budget.
I was thinking, like with all the effects of like the flooding of the floor, like where they were, the bookshelves, like when they were in the library, I mean, just like the dreamy.
You got no, there is no CGI. You know that one scene where there was two Joels in that scene. Remember where he's like,
yeah.
There's not even a green screen. Like the director has Jim Carrey running back and forth in one pan shot, and so he's running behind the scene. Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. Like,
he had to run behind the camera.
Yeah,
and change clothes. Wow,
they
shot.
Yeah,
they touch things up with CGI here and there. Like some stuff had to be like when they're running through the Grand Central Station, and you see all the people disappearing. Like that's CGI. That has to be. And when they're running, there's a scene where they're running and like the fence posts start disappearing like one by one really quick. But a lot of it was practical, like you said. Like the scenes where Jim Carrey's like a kid or whatever, that was forced perspective. It was the same thing that Peter Jackson did on Lord of the Rings to differentiate the hype from Gandalf to Frodo. Like, the same. So they built sets that they I don't know how to explain it, but like part of the set is like closer to the camera, it's smaller.
Yeah.
And the farther away it's bigger or something like that. So it gives
that's
you
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So and he also uses he relies heavily on like theatrical stagecraft to make his
$20
films.
million, not a lot. Honestly, Arnold, not a lot of money even for back then. Like that's actually like I think that'd be considered low to medium budget, but.
There's something I just wanted to point out, and I think it's kind of an interesting thing. This movie came out 2004? Is that correct? And then the iPhone, the first iPhone comes out in 2007. If you think about it, consider this: the imagination that it takes to do this kind of film, to create the visuals and stuff. It kind of lines up with how I hate people who like really kind of demonize the technology. Technology is a tool, right? And but it's the people behind it who use it to like manipulate the people and the way their attention is and things like that. So I feel that if you look at this era of filmmaking, you start to see it kind of slowly slip away, and going back to the idea of like how this film, if this film could be made today, it could by Michel Gondry, you know, but I don't think it can be done by anybody else.
I agree, and also it's all about the craft, right? Like we're in an era now where. People are starting to use AI in mainstream filmmakers. Like I just saw the controversy with Eli Roth, I believe, who has like some horror movie that's out right now. Justin, you may have heard about this, and he's getting a lot of flack for
so much controversy behind him.
Yeah, because he's using generative AI in that movie. They made a George Washington movie where there was mostly AI. And then, of course, you have Elon Musk making his own Odyssey version fully with AI, and it's like...
Well, to give context, Eli Roth, he lied about not using generative AI, in his newest film, Ice Cream Man.
Yeah.
And then he backpedals and says, "Oh yeah, I did."
Yeah.
Garbage dude, anyways. Now, so
I agree, but and the thing is, it's I bring this up just to say, like, it makes you appreciate the craft even more of movies pre AI, because like you look at a movie like this and you're like, man, like so much thought went into every single shot. Whether it was practical or CGI, like somebody still has to make that.
You know what I didn't I didn't remember noticing it, but this time around as I watched it again, like the whole hair color changing thing and how it kind of helps solidify what timeline you're in. I thought that was genius. Like I didn't notice that the first, like I don't know how I watched it the first time and understood the movie, but I didn't even realize that her hair color was changing.
In the beginning of the movie, which is the end of the story, her hair was blue. And blue represents winter, coldness, sadness. It is the color of her hair when they re-encounter each other after erasing their memories. And then green was spring, new beginnings, and that's what her color was when they were on the beach in that one scene. I forget. That's kind of like towards the third act of the movie. Red was when they're breaking up. Red represents the Red Menace. And I think her hair was orange at one point. That represents autumn, fading desire, the slow deterioration of their... I don't remember specifically when she had orange hair. Does anybody remember that?
Yeah, it was when like they were. I remember the parts in the apartment where she was fighting. Like, she took off in the car.
I thought it was red in that moment. That was orange?
I thought it was orange.
Oh, you're probably right.
It's like...
I remember that too, because she said like it's a tangerine or like no. He said your hair is orange like your name or something like that.
That's right. Wasn't it Elijah Wood's character calling her Tangerine?
Yeah, he kept on calling her Tangerine.
Yeah.
I also wanted to point out, going back to the hair color stuff, is that when her hair is blue, you notice that her hair, even though it's like bright on like the tips, her hair is actually kind of faded, and her roots are like not fully dyed the blue, because she still has like the blonde like near the end of her roots, and then she has like the darkness in her roots too, and it just shows that like it's her the light in her, the color in her is like slowly fading.
That's true. That's a good point. Like I said, it goes back to the attention to detail, and like in the aesthetics and how they help tell the story and stuff. So I think that's what makes it part of what makes it such a great movie.
Winslet, she was in Titanic, right?
Yes.
Right, I know.
Rose. And by the way, HLP brings up a good point. He's like, $20 million is nothing considering the cast. And like, that's true. Like, Kate Winslet was an A-list star already by that point. Like, her Titanic success alone, she could have demanded a lot of money. And Jim Carrey as well. So, methinks they both took a pay cut to do, this
I don't know.
movie.
I think sometimes actors, like, kind of like how when you have a regular job and you just want to break from your mundane, monotonous, repetitive job, I'm sure it's like that for actors too, where like they go into movies wanting like that buck, and then I'm sure they consider doing other roles, especially if the script is right, and they're like, what, I'm not going to do this for the money. I'm going to do this because I believe in this project, and
right.
I feel like that was probably considered as well. But still, even for that time, I think $20 million for a movie is pretty reasonable even then.
Yeah.
Well, then you also got to consider too the fact that they probably wanted to work with Michel Gondry, being at that time he was. What Science of Sleep came before, correct?
Science of Sleep came out in afterwards.
Afterwards,
2006.
Like there was another film that he did that kind of like.
Yeah, he did.
Anyways, like he was definitely like a sought after director at that time, like because the people just saw his work, and I think that speaks again, going back to the music video thing, it speaks to the having that body of work to fall back on and be like, hey, this is what I can do, and then people like actors can foresee like the talent that some directors have, and like the fun that they could probably have with doing a project with certain people, if you see some like things like that.
You see some of the effects that he uses like in the music videos. I don't know when the Chemical Brothers video came out, Star Guitar, but like that one shot where like you see the shot from a window of a train that's moving, and we see that again here in this. So I don't know which came first.
It's the one that's where the like all the things outside the window line up with the beats. Yeah.
HLP brings up another good point. He says when they're on the ice and they're lying on the ice and it's cracked, it's a way to, like it almost shows you like there's damage in the relationship, but it's not broken. I was like, I never even thought about that. HLP, that's a good one. Yeah.
I like the way that scene was lit too. It was like half dark, completely dark.
Yeah.
You lose all the details in like what Jim Carrey's wearing, but you can still, it's still lit from the other side. So it's like the single source that they used was nice.
I love that moment in the bookstore when all the books are the spines are backwards, so you're not seeing the spine of the books, you're seeing the other side, and it gave it that sort of liminal space vibes that long before Backrooms was ever a thing. I thought that was really cool.
What I also do like about that scene of them going onto the ice. Joel is scared. He's like worried about like his, but it's like kind of almost a metaphor for like their relationship, like diving headfirst into the whole thing and like taking that leap of faith. And I think that's like when it comes down to relationships, it's always just a leap of faith. You could like spend as much time with a person, like learning who they are when you first start dating. But at the end of the day, it's all a leap of faith. And you just got to trust that things will work out, right? Even like if you do see cracks in the the metaphor that of the crack in the ice. So
and then speaking more about this, walking on ice, they're walking, just normally, and normally just so that way you guys ever are walking on ice, it's a good rule of thought to something to think about. You don't want your legs so close together. You want to distribute your body weight. Ideally, I guess ideally if you can do the splits, on the ice, that would be a little bit better. That way,
So Van Damme's really great on walking on ice.
Yeah.
Van Damme is the best person to walk on ice with.
Yeah.
So which diving a little bit, drilling a little bit deeper into that. He was walking with his like you were saying, just really kind of going for it. Legs close together. He should have opened up they should have opened up their legs a little bit more, like spread them apart a little bit more.
Right.
That probably would have. I don't know. Did you guys get that as well on that?
Well,
scene?
Stretch the sex comedy. Stretch the sex comedy like.
Knowing how to walk on ice
Make it fit.
is great information if you live in Palm Springs, because you never know when a random ice storm is going to blow through, right, Arnold?
Word. Yeah.
So,
it can happen up in
That's
the
funny.
up in the
Or
mountains.
when the ice rink comes back to the river.
Oh, does the river do ice rinks now?
They used to.
Arnold, I mean, I know you're not like a big movie guy in general, but you like this movie, right? Like, what stands out to you, like, besides like the relationship aspect?
I mean, that was one big part. At the beginning of the movie was the end. I'm like, that makes sense now.
Dude, you know what I want to see? A collab between Michel Gondry and Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold. What do you think about that? I think that would be interesting, don't you think?
That would, but I think we need a more modern day Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is tough because there's no other JCVD.
What about from the car movies that you like? What's his name? Vin Diesel?
Ryan Gosling?
No, Vin Diesel.
Oh, Vin Diesel.
Yeah, could you see Vin Diesel doing like an art house style movie?
Maybe, but when you guys are talking about how like the movements goes along with the beat, there's one part, and I saw a recent video on social media of in the Fast and the Furious, when Dom towards the end, when he's walking to the muscle car to go and chase after Johnny Tran on the motorcycles, he's like walking fast, but then it's going to like this techno beat. You gotta see it to
I've not seen one of those movies, dude. I've not seen. They've been making those since like 2000, 2001. Like, they're still going, right? Like, every year there's like 20 of those, but now 20 something.
I think we're coming up on the 25-year anniversary for that.
Yeah.
Is it?
I remember that, yeah.
Universal made those movies, and Universal's Focus Features, their indie arm, made this movie. So just to clarify from earlier, Focus Features is Universal's indie like arm brand that they used for like smaller movies like this. I don't know if they're still making movies even now, though. I haven't.
They still
really
do.
paid attention. Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, such a great movie.
Yeah, HOP mentioned about stealing a woman's bra. But one thing that I thought about in this movie, if I was what was the guy who Elijah Wood if I was him, I definitely would not have stolen the panties.
No, you should have
like him.
I agree.
Just to clarify that.
You bring that up, and what I wanted to talk about was
I don't think anybody was asking, Arnold.
Oh no! It's because it was on the chat, and it's also on the private chat.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody would have noticed that. So you wouldn't have had to defend yourself, Arnold.
No, but seriously, I appreciate the mechanics of the movie where Joel, in order to hide Kate Winslet's character, he's like, let me go into some memories that they won't be looking for. And there's an awkward scene where I think he's masturbating to something, and the mom walks in. What was he? It was like a magazine or something. What was it he was looking at?
No, it was a cartoon.
It was like a
drawing.
Cartoon porn.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And then like the childhood memories were great when he's in the bathtub and stuff. When they're both in the bathtub, I like the scene where he gets bullied, and they switch back and forth between Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, and then like the child actors, and they keep going back and forth. That was like a fun little.
When they're like telling the kids are trying to bully him into like smashing the bird or something.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Gosh, man.
Yeah.
What I do really appreciate about this movie, like it's one of the things that I learned, after multiple viewings over the years. Like you kind of, when I first saw this movie, like I saw it for, like at face value. It was a good film, but then as you get older, especially when I was experiencing my divorce, you start to, or at least before it started like to unfold, when that my divorce started to unfold, I started to cherry pick certain things from this film that kind of like related to me. But then as you get older and you experience more and more stuff, you like see the movie as not just for what it is, but like you start to delve deeper into what the meaning of it all. And like as you process a lot of your breakups and the things that you go through with in relationships, a lot of times it's a lot about like regret and like you wish you like kind of didn't do things. But then that's one of the things that it teaches you in this film. What I really got out of it, is that you could run away from these memories, these things. You could try to bury them, but there's always somehow it's going to come back and get you. And like you just look at like Joel and Clementine's relationship. They erased each other from each other's memory, yet they were still to somehow come back, like find the core people that they are is what's important and what they're attracted to. And as much as you like may dislike certain things about a person, those core things that you are attracted to will always be the things you have to understand to like being able to like be a better person for other people when in terms of relationships. You have to fix that part of you before you can even find like the true love that you're like wanting to find.
I like that a lot. I agree 100%. I think I forget what movie we did recently. There was a slightly older movie that I said like, oh, when I watched it originally, I don't think I appreciated it as much then as I do now as an adult who's been through things and relationships, blah blah blah. And I think that certainly holds true for this movie. It's sort of recontextualized now, right? Because also being a divorced guy that's been through some stuff like that, so you appreciate. I appreciate it so much more now, and just thinking about like exactly what you were saying. So, and I think that's what makes it have staying power. That's why like this movie is not forgettable. That's like valuable, right? Like that's such a good value that you can to get out of a story. And I love that whole sentiment. So I 100% agree with you on that. HLP, he brought up a good point earlier. He was saying, imagine after Joel had his memory erased and then he saw the dent in his car and woke up to an angry letter and wrote an angry letter on the car next to him, and being the person who was confused, why am I getting a letter? I love the whole motif of the car and all. Had that dent, which was caused by Clementine. And like, that was a nice like little visual motif to let kind of know where we are in the story.
I have a thing about that actually. Yeah. You know how he was just trying to get rid of the evidence of Clementine? What if that dent in the car was a trigger for him to remember Clementine?
Oh, that's an interesting. I like that idea. And by the way, did you notice in the waiting room he had his box of stuff, and then there was two people on either side of him, and one like there was like a lady with some stuff, and then there was like an older man. It looked like he had trophies or something, and I don't know if it was implying like his kids' trophies.
It was like everybody had like something that was relatable to what those memories, because like that's the whole thing. They were supposed to purge everybody that came in there. They were supposed to purge everything that reminded them. But that's kind of the whole thing, you can't run away from your memories. You can purge whatever's in your brain, you can purge whatever's around you, whatever's in your control and within your grasp. But there's even the simplest things, you could go someplace and it reminds you. Yeah. That's why the whole idea of, so was it Montauk? The whole thing?
Find me in Montauk.
Find me in Montauk.
Yeah,
and that holds such a powerful thing, because that's why when he went, he had this like urge to like, I got to go to Montauk. So they go there. And I think that is also part of the triggering of like, I remember, I don't want to say that they were remembering, because they didn't, because the memories were erased, but it kind of, there's that gut instinct to like follow something, like that seems to make sense.
Yeah.
There's that sort of kind of breadcrumb trail.
Some of the things in this movie, it almost felt like it was like their version of Inception, the totem, almost like Montauk is like a totem, the car dent is like a totem, or it's like some kind of like a reminder that triggers, like Justin said, those memories. Donnie, you had something?
I think the film is just about like trying to tell you that like the human experience, like you can't love without having the bad side of a relationship, right? Like that part where you're experiencing grief and pain and sadness, like that's part of the experience. So you're able to identify when you are truly in love, right? So that's a part of it. You can't separate those two. And then also, like, I think the movie tries to teach us that like a relationship comes in many forms. Like it doesn't have to be perfect for it to be the relationship that you're supposed to be in, right? Like if it teaches you something, or if you're able to get value out of the relationship and learn something from it, like relationship comes in many forms, and it doesn't have to like essentially last forever for it to be valuable, right? And so
Absolutely. And dude, like there's still positive things that you can derive. Like I never would have left the state of California if it wasn't for my ex. You know what I mean? I'd still be living in California to this day, probably. You know, and like I'm glad that like I was like I had the wherewithal to like, yeah, let's move out of state. Why not, right? Why not go out there and experience the world? And here I am in Colorado. You know, 10 years later, more than 10 years later since I left California for the first time, and it's like, oh, or second time actually, if you count college, but. Yeah, so I get what you're saying. There's positives and negatives that can be derived from your experiences and the person that you were with. So yeah, 100% agree.
100%, yeah.
100%.
I like how they ended it, where it's like they knew that them going back with each other, like they knew they were going to annoy each other, they knew they were going to be mad at each other and disappoint each other, but they chose each other, like knowing that they're both imperfect. And
I love how simple that dialogue was at the end, where she's like, you're not going to want to be with me. Like, I'm going to get crazy. I'm going to get this. And he's like, okay. And she's like, okay. Yeah. And then like, that's it. Like, that's the last thing they say. And like, it's so simple, but it's so effective. I love
it. It's
kind
of symbolic of like what exactly what Donnie was talking about, like the accepting of each other, of our flaws, not just like our strengths. It's important that we do that, you know, but also helping each other acknowledge those things. Like we should be holding each other accountable for those things, but without any sort of resentment or like anger. Like it's like kind of like, yeah, you know, I get it. That's how I am.
I think that shifts, right? The love story shifts at that point where before that it's kind of like they're trying to find the perfect love, right? So it's almost like representative of like an immature love versus the mature love, where like your understanding of what comes with the pains that come and the downsides that come with actually getting into a relationship and dealing with the person.
It's interesting. Like we did Broken Flowers recently, right? And like in that movie, Bill Murray gets no closure of any kind pretty much at the end. So it's interesting. Now we're doing this movie, and it's like in this movie, it ends on a note of hope that they might make it work. And what's interesting about that even is that originally the way this is written, they were going to basically do this procedure several times throughout their lives until they're like old. And like, they're like, and then I think they changed it. They didn't want to do it that way, which I'm glad they didn't. I feel like that would have been like too much, like having them stuck on this endless loop, endless cycle. I like this ending way better, this version way better. So
how about later in the movie to come to find out that Kirsten Dunst's character, that she had her, memory
procedure
procedure with the doctor, like that was kind of wild.
Yeah, let's talk about that really quick.
Howard and Mary,
the doctor played by Tom Wilkinson. It turns out he used the procedure on Kirsten Dunst's character, who was apparently in love with him. And the way that plays out is Tom Wilkinson's wife shows up while they're doing the procedure on Jim Carrey's character, and she goes up and she sees him, and he runs out of the house. He's like, no, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. And then Kirsten Dunst comes up, I'm just a dumb girl. Blah, blah. And then she looks at Tom Wilkinson, and she's like, at least tell the poor girl the truth. And then she drives off. That whole
she's like, don't be a monster.
Don't be a monster.
Oh yeah.
That's a really biting word to say, to call somebody. You're like, don't be a monster.
To me, that was the darkest aspect of the whole story, is that he was abusing his role and his power to do that to Kirsten Dunst's character. I thought that was like a dark aspect to it. And
I think it was important to have that though, right? Because it kind of ties the story. Like it really shows like he's trying to prove the point that your brain forgets, but your heart's going to repeat the patterns that it wants to repeat.
Right.
You know?
I was just gonna say something
we kind
like
of
that.
needed to see that.
I'm curious that like maybe they built this business. He built this business on the back of him erasing Mary's memory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense because like if you think about it, like she admired him so much and was like so enamored by him to the point that like maybe she was like a student and learning from him, you know, or whatever.
I thought
And
maybe
then-
she was like a guinea pig.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
maybe she was like the first of like the whole entire thing, and that's why they had to do that, and like that maybe they created this business just to justify having like this procedure for her. Like, you know, like they had this sort of like they had to prove it medically, like in front of some board, and like it worked, quote unquote, and then they were able to start making money off of it.
Yeah.
So they, you know, because if you look at the machinery that they use on everybody, it's so rickety, and maybe it's like it's by design, like and also like maybe sort of if you look at it's kind of that charm that Michel Gondry has. If you look at like his other films, like Be Kind, Rewind, a lot of that stuff is like really rickety and, you know, almost looking thrown together. But even then, like it still feels like this new business that they're kind of doing, and like everybody's just kind of like clamoring on, like. But yeah,
There's some interesting world building going on for sure.
Yeah.
Justin, you had something?
How much business do you think they get? And are they treating every client the same way where they're always doing house calls? Because it doesn't seem like they have a big enough team to keep doing all these house calls and, you know, taking care of their patients. Like, it seemed like they had a small, like, home base office as well.
I think it's a pretty new business for one.
It feels like a bit boutique, you know?
Yeah,
But then when Kristen Dunst's going through all the files, there's like a bunch of files.
Well, that's
is
probably a lot of other clients, but like if you think about it, like erasing somebody's memory isn't going to be like simple, you know. It's going to have a lot of documentation.
Because Mark Ruffalo's character has to go in there like a surgeon and be precise and like, you know, cut out, you know, specific points in their memory matrix or whatever the hell it's called.
Plus the brain
it's like
is amazing.
It's like he's playing a video game. It's like he's just erasing where it lights up. It's like that's crazy, dude.
The brain is amazing.
The production design is great. I loved it.
Yeah.
The strongest memory
that explains
is,
too, like some of the parts of the movie, right? Like when he has his monologue scene, Jim Carrey's character, when he talks about I can't look at women in the eye, like when I first meet him and stuff like that, and then like when they meet each other on the train for the first time, supposedly, like he does make eye contact with her, but like parts of his memory is erased, so he doesn't realize what he's doing, you know, like.
Yeah, it seems like it's a very like you have to be super precise because you could probably screw some things up. Because what is Tom Wilkins saying? He's like, it basically is brain damage. That was a funny line.
Same thing with the Clementine song. Remember, because when he goes back into his brain, his mom's singing that song to him, but he doesn't know the song on the train.
That's right. Yeah, and that was because I think Tom Wilkinson knew, or someone knew that.
No, they were trying to delete her because they tried to hide in that scene. Remember, they were trying to hide there where he was giving him a bath as a kid. Yeah,
that's
so
a good
they
point.
deleted it, and so that's why he doesn't know the song.
All right, well, fellas, I feel like we're at that point. Unless anybody else wanted to touch on anything else.
What was that? What was that line that David Cross said? That was super hilarious. Like they were going through it, and then he's working on something, and he's like, I'm building something. That line was hilarious because he's just all in the back working on something. He's like, I forget what he's building though. He's like, I'm building something or whatever. He's like, I'm building a birdhouse.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm building a birdhouse. It's so fun. I thought that quote was just so funny throughout the whole movie.
That was good.
Out of everything, I think David Cross had like the best comedy lines.
Yeah, David Cross is great. Jane Addams is great. She always shows up in a lot of movies, but always in like small supporting parts. Well, guys, that's the movie. What else? I kind of wanted to do something a little bit fun tonight. just to change things up a little bit in lieu of like final thoughts, in lieu of like hypothetical question. Well, it is a hypothetical question, but basically the question is, if you were to recast this movie for today, and we touched on this earlier, who would you cast as the two main leads? And I really want to get your guys' ideas on this. I have an idea, but I want to hear you guys' thoughts first. Who wants to go first? Arnold, let's start with you, Arnold. Who would you? And it could be anybody. Like, throw a wrench into it. Who cares? This is a fun way to end the episode.
Keanu Reeves.
Okay. Keanu Reeves is Joel.
I mean, I could see that.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah.
And the girl in Speed, who played that movie with
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock.
So you're just recasting? You're recasting Eternal Sunshine with the cast of Speed?
Yes.
Yes.
Dennis Hopper is Tom Wilkinson's character.
Exactly.
Oh my God, let's do that. Oh well, he's passed. Can't do that. We could have done that if he was still alive.
And
who would be a good instead of Elijah Wood, you get Daniel Radcliffe, Sydney Sweeney, and Kirsten Dunst's role.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
Either her or Sabrina Carpenter, even though she's not an actress.
Maybe Margot Robbie.
No,
I think Sophie Turner could play Clementine.
Sophie Turner, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Here's a wild one. My friend Tina Explorer, she'd probably do good in that too.
Oh, your friend, quote unquote, your friend.
You can get her on the show. She had the secret chat.
Yeah, get her on the show, Arnold. I'll believe it if she's your friend.
I think if this were to be made today, and not in a good way, maybe in a good way, stunt casting wise, Zac Efron as Joel. And Zac Efron as Joel. And I'm going to go with, my gut's telling me, Brie Larson as the female lead, as Clementine. No, that's not a good matchup.
I remember that name, Brie Larson. Wasn't it, when were we talking about her?
Yeah, she was in, we talked about Scott Pilgrim. She was in Scott Pilgrim.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know who would be a good, what's that, Mary? The girl from Drive.
Carey Mulligan.
Carey Mulligan. Yeah.
Carey Mulligan do that with those two, yeah. Or Emma Stone, do another Gosling Stone duo.
Or it could be Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons as Joel. I could see that, actually. That'd be good.
Jesse Plemons would be interesting for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so those would be my two picks. Donnie, did you have anything? Did you have any recastings that you could see?
I think it'd be interesting to see like Rose McGowan in that role. I don't know. I don't know.
Hold on. Rose McGowan today, she looks like Michael Jackson.
Oh no, not today. Jawbreakers, Rose McGowan.
Doom Generation, Rose McGowan.
Yeah.
Doom Generation. Yeah. And I think Keanu was a good pick. Arnold was saying. I think he'd be a good pick.
One of the few actors whose name came to mind, probably because I watched The Matrix about 69 times.
He's a good actor. I love Keanu Reeves.
Justin, did you have anybody else? I feel like you mentioned a couple earlier.
What's her name from Ghost World? I think she would be a good fit.
Thora Birch.
And what's his name from Ghost Dog?
Forrest Whitaker?
Forrest Whitaker.
Wow, that's an interesting matchup, too.
Yeah.
When you said the girl from Ghost World, I thought you were going to say Scarlett Johansson.
And then we just combine
that could also work.
Characters and actors from all the movies with the title Ghost in it.
Yeah. So Ghost Story, you would have Casey Affleck.
Yes.
Directed by Zach Bagans of Ghost Adventures.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Oh God, that would be the worst movie of all time. He would just make it about himself and put the camera on himself the whole time. He'd be like,
He'd set it in Vegas.
I want all these actors, but they're going to be behind the camera.
It would be shot like a music video style with the camera, kind of like how they did in a lot of the dreamy moments.
Johnny Depp could do it too. I think Johnny Depp would be.
Arnold inspired like a weird thing that just popped up in my head. Why don't we ever have any movies where it's like POV, but the POV is from selfie mode? Like you're like the whole movie is just selfie mode. Like you're holding onto the camera.
Let's make it, Justin.
Let's do it. We'll call the movie Selfie. Yeah.
HLP says Matt Berry and Kristen Schaal. That would just be too funny.
Okay.
That'd be a funny movie. It would be over the top hilarious, but it wouldn't be. It wouldn't have the emotional impact as much as I love both Matt Berry and Kristen Schaal. And then he says Alexis Dezina. I don't know who that is, and Jermaine Clement. I know who Jermaine Clement is. Who's Alexa Dezina?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but people on the private chat, they're saying you should play Arnold, but with like Alexis Texas.
Yeah, Arnold. No, yeah, she'd be Kirsten Dunst's character. I don't even know who that is, Arnold. You always bring her up.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is. Never heard of her. And,
Yeah,
all.
explain who Alexis Texas is. I don't.
That's,
I can't
that's because
recall.
the strongest memory is a sense of smell and taste.
That's
I mean,
true.
that's
That's true, though. That's actually true.
that is.
Scientifically.
Go on, Arnold. Go on.
Like when I think about like when our travels up to Northern California when we're driving past Gilroy, like I can think of it, I can totally smell it. You know?
But hold on. Like your sense of
Eternal
smell and
Sunshine of
taste, in relation to Alexis Texas. What? Go on. Explain that.
I think Arnold's having a sensory overload.
Looking out for Carla.
Yeah, look. Arnold, when you got a minute, she's gonna be like that. I love that you have brought in a Gilroy reference. We haven't had that in a while, so thank you for that. We needed that.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, because I was also thinking about it because I got to marinate some meat, and I was like,
oh, there you go.
If only I was in Gilroy. All I had to do was just hang it.
I'm actually in your chat, and they're saying that you guys have a movie that you're making right now called Alexis Texas Goes to Gilroy.
Right?
This is true. In San Diego, Arnold made me a little cup of coffee with lion's mane, and it was delicious, by the way. Little coconut flavor, little coffee flavor. That was good. And I remember I told you, Arnold, I was like, oh, I feel pepped up now.
Yeah,
I needed more of that. So thank you, Arnold, for that.
Imagine I would have a full spoon of that. Get me amped up.
If you ever hang out with Arnold, like you're gonna have snacks, you're gonna have drinks, you're gonna have lion's mane. Like you can't go wrong hanging out with Arnold. So we should do like an NSIP experience, like on Airbnb.
You're
like
gonna have
Arnold
access to his OF account.
And access to his OF account, a secret chat, maybe.
Yep. Cologne.
Yeah, I hang out with Arnold a lot, and he never gives me access to that shit.
He never gets. Well, you're his brother, so
what a fucking asshole.
No. We have to.
I sent you a message before, and you didn't even respond.
No, you
have
didn't.
to give him a.
I'm on top of the messages you send me, Arnold.
But yeah, fellas, well, that's a movie. Went off the rails a little bit in the end, but we tend to do that. All good. I think we covered enough. There's nothing else. I say let's go around and give our socials. Arnold, I want to start. Or no, Arnold, actually, I'll wait on you. Donnie, I want to start with you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on _ Donnie Appleseed on Instagram, Facebook. If you want to check out my photography, it's 125 Photography, also on Instagram. You're doing a rating on this? I give the movie 5 stars. If so, yeah, I love this movie. I think it's like one of those movies that, and I try not to insert myself in film, like in the movies that I watch, but I just can't help but like thinking about it and like what I would do in this scenario, or if I would do it, right, in this film. I just think it's timeless, and I think it's a really good love story. I love everything about it, and I appreciate the art element that the director has with everything that he did and how he executed in the film.
Well said. Thank you for that, Donnie. Justin, where can people find you?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Fantastic movie. Every time I watch it, it has, I can't really describe how this movie makes me feel, but it is so dreamlike. I don't think any movie has ever replicated how dreamlike this movie is. Some movies may have been able to replicate it in some way. I know we talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think that's a good example, but to do it with like lack thereof CGI and being able to build most of it, whether they added like little snippets of CGI where people are disappearing. I also feel like that could be done as like a more of like a editing filter. Like I know you could do something similar with just simple After Effects and things like that. So I wouldn't even know how much CGI would have been used in this movie, but I really appreciate the handmade sets. quite frankly, some of it, and again, I didn't really do a whole lot of research on how this movie was made, but from what it looks like, some of the scenes that we were talking about earlier, like the fence disappearing, that almost looks like it's not CGI, it's CGI, and it's more of like in the way that stop motion is kind of built. At least that's how it looked to me,
That's a
like
good
they were
point.
just taking pieces away, and then they just like maybe even just green screen them over that scene. But the lighting, the feeling of this movie, very wispy, very cloudy, reminds me of, well, reminds me of how much I forget in my own life. I'm a very forgetful person. I think elements of this movie also is kind of scary in its own way, although this was like more of a calmer love story type of thing. I wonder if this movie also, at least the way I see it, kind of like an Alzheimer's type of thing where everything is moving so quickly, everything is disappearing. You remember things 1 minute, you forget things another minute, and that's kind of terrifying. I think this movie captures that in a maybe not so much in like a horror aspect, but there's a lot to be afraid of when you're losing your memory. You don't know who you are, you don't know where you are, you don't know the people that care about you and love you are. And I think in a way this movie does have a little bit of that element of when you're watching it, you do seem to kind of forget along with the characters a little bit. Everything just seems so blurry and quick that if you're not paying attention, you miss a lot of what's going on. You get lost in um details that are passing you by, and I think this movie portrays that, and then the characters reacting to what's going on it is a little bit scary. I think Jim Carrey is underrated in the serious roles. I think the roles that he has done that were serious were very meaningful and impactful. And I think that's intentional on his part. Same with Kate Winslet and even David Cross. He had such a small portion, but I remember his character so well. You know, we're building a birdhouse, Carrie. It's that one thing stuck in my mind, made me remember. And on the contrary, that also seems like a scene that even I think we're also kind of seeing his key moments as well in this movie. Like that scene was very prominent, at least to me. I don't know about you guys, but there's certain scenes in this movie that are very dynamic and prominent. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is actually Joel, like really remembering or trying to remember and keep those memories for himself. Because, yeah, he's kind of running and hiding, and so he can continue to remember those core memories. But I think there's certain things that he passes by that may potentially have not been deleted because they were so profound. And maybe I'm looking too much into it. I feel very strongly about this movie, and I feel like I didn't get a chance to talk enough about it, which is why I'm spewing it right now.
No, you're good.
But it's a wonderful movie. I think the lighting of it, the wispiness, the fogginess of it, even the single light that's just pointing down on them, blurring out everything else around them, was a very fantastic way to go about making this film. Overall, my rating is going to be 5 out of 5. I think it's a wonderful, fantastic film that everybody should watch at least 10 times just to kind of look at what you're actually looking at. There's a lot going on. You can miss a lot too. And that is going to be my score. Yeah.
Nice. No, thank you for that, Justin. I appreciate that. I forgot about that spotlighting, and then like the faces were warped and they lost all the features. That was like like I was saying, like it was almost like Backrooms before Backrooms, man. Like there was like liminal semi-horror elements to this movie that, years ahead of time. And yeah, I love that whole vibe with the dark spotlight and stuff. That was great. So yeah, I just completely forgot about that myself. So
You can find me Ghost Nerd 88 if you want to check out my art stuff. And then Shibs the Zombie personal profile if you want to see me do personal things, I guess. But yeah, go follow me. Yeah.
Nice. All right, Alex. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to give final thoughts on anything,
I honestly, I've given this thought like over the years of watching this film as it being one of my favorite films of all time. I honestly, standing here today, after like going back and forth over the years of whether or not I would, and I wouldn't erase anything. I think that I get the traumas that especially, but if we're gonna do it if they're gonna erase our memory in the same sense that they are gonna erase our memory in this film, where you're purging every single aspect of a person that may have traumatized you, or certain things that may have traumatized you, you're eliminating a lot of important people, a lot of important things, that may be related to even the most traumatic parts of your life. And I think that it's important to have context, and the context isn't just that one singular traumatic experience, but also what was going on in the rest of your life surrounding that, the people who were there for you, the people who not just the thing or the person or the whatever event traumatized you, but like the people who tried to help. Those are always gonna it's a lot of times we forget the people who were, and it happens. We kind of go through these moments, and then there's people around us that had words of wisdom for us. And I think that's the whole point of this film. It's whether or not you are able to, you're still, there's going to be things that bring you back. And so, I wouldn't. My score, it's a 5 out of 5. Again, one of my all-time favorites. Such a beautiful film. Michel Gondry is such an amazing director. All the acting in this film is just top notch. You can find me at Daily Dares on all my social media. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for that, Alex. No, very well said, guys. Really appreciate that. Arnold, what is your Letterboxd score? And then what comes after that?
I bump it up to a 4.
And where can people find you?
And you can find me at Arnie Kalego.
Arnold, well, it's time for my favorite part of the show, Arnold. I think you know what's coming, Arnold. I think it's time for the Arnold Snooze-o-meter. All right, guys. Hit us with it. Snooze-o-meter score.
Z rating.
Wow.
I give it a half Z. That's me. Maybe not for you, but for me, my type of movie is a lot of action, and so it was a really good movie, but yeah, half Z. Maybe have a little cup of coffee.
Little lion's mane.
Little lion's mane. You know what, man? Well, that's me. And
how about some Gucci Mane in your coffee?
Ooh, yeah, some Gucci Mane.
Gucci Mane in your coffee, Arnold. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine that smell. Now,
yeah.
Adrian, Mr. BOOTZ Too Big. What's your final thoughts, and where can we find you?
I'll just really quick. I love this movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. One of my all-time favorite Jim Carrey performances. Kate Winslet performances. I love the cast. I love the script. I love the production design. This is a movie that's, like I said, it has staying power. You're never going to forget this movie. You might forget specific things, like David Cross being in it, but you're never going to forget this movie as a whole. It's just that good of a movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should just watch it. Go into it with an open mind, which I should say about that about every movie, but especially this one. But yeah, great movie. 4 stars out of 5. You know what? I'm gonna bump it up. This has been my rating on here for a while because I've logged it forever ago. I'm gonna bump it up to 5. I actually agree. It is that good of a movie. It's one of my rare 5 stars on Letterboxd. I'm gonna give it a 5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. There we go. And yeah, love that movie. And really quick, if there's one memory I could erase, honestly, I would just erase the memory of watching the Blair Witch Project 2. It's a horrible movie. If you've never seen
Shadows?
it was the one that came out in the early 2000s. Blair Witch Project. It was so bad.
It's called Blair Witch Project: The Book of Shadows.
Yeah, terrible, bad. That's a forgettable movie. The only thing I remember is that it was extremely bad. So yeah, that's what I would do.
It's so awful. It's like one of those movies that was made for television, but got a theatrical release because of the name behind it.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with the original concept.
It was so dumb. I would almost say like the CW would have taken it, but even the CW would have been like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, this is terrible.
Yeah, I remember watching that movie, but I don't remember the movie at all.
Good, exactly. Exactly. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, terrible movie. Unlike Eternal Sunshine, which is a great movie, 5 stars out of 5 for me on Letterboxd. You can find me on Letterboxd at Boots Too Big. You can find the show everywhere else. We're everywhere, guys. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok. Find us, Never Seen a Podcast. Visit our website, neverseenapodcast.com. Email us, podcast.neverseenit@gmail.com. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review. Talk to us. Talk some shit. We'll read it on the air. We don't care. You know that. You know, we'll do that for sure. But yeah, Never Seen a Podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the big ones. That is where you can find us all. And big thanks to Mr. Kyle Mapson of Burn Cycle for the intro and outro music. You can find Kyle on Instagram at selfies_food_and_pets. Alex, I know you hung out with him recently. I'm assuming that went great, Mr.
It went great.
Didn't
get to meet David Diggs.
Oh, David Diggs, yeah. Alexander Hamilton. Oh, that's okay.
He was backstage the whole time.
You should have been like, so what did I miss? So what did I miss? No. I love Hamilton. I don't care.
I think that, you know what's funny is like I think there were like Hamilton fans at that show.
I bet there were.
There was like a lot of older people. Like, no, seriously, there was like a lot of older people there.
He was in The Boys recently too, which I was blown away by that.
Well, he was also in Greg Araki's newest film, I Want Your Sex, which I think we should all watch.
We should do that,
and review that. I think it's I watched it a second time this last weekend. So
I say that in college all the time, but it never went anywhere. That's okay though. And thanks to Mr. HLP for Arnold Snoozometer music. But yeah, that's the show. Any final thoughts from the gentleman?
I'm gonna delete Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows from my memory, and that I take back what I said earlier.